You're about to enter the arena and join the battle to save America with your host, Sean Parnell.
Good evening, America. Welcome to Battleground Live. This is the show where we kick ass and we take names and we lock horns with the radical left. We never quit. We never surrender, from sea to shining sea and everybody in between. Welcome, Patriots, on this Tuesday, and a glorious Tuesday it is. It seems like it's later in the week. Do you want to know why? Because we usually have Savage Rich Barris on Wednesday for Savage Wednesday, but having him on Monday kind of changes things in my head a little bit. But folks, I feel pretty good. I gotta say, I feel pretty darn good about where we are as a country right now. President Trump is back in office, and gosh, he is wasting no time stepping into the role of the American president, the leader of our country, but also the leader of the entire world. I mean, Melanie and I were laughing. And for those who are maybe watching for the first time or listening for the first time, Melanie, Commander Melanie, is my amazing wife. She's the commander of Fort Parnell. All things go to her for approval, and that's perfectly fine because that's how things roll around here, right? But we were laughing last night watching President Trump, clearly revel in this moment, and he should. I mean, what's funny about that is that President Trump always has this stoic look on his face. Like, you'll see him at his rallies when he's at his best, engaging with the crowd. And every now and again, you'll hear somebody in the crowd shout something to him, and you'll see him laugh spontaneously. But normally when he's engaging with the press, or he's out at an event and, he's not on stage at the podium doing what he does best, he has a pretty solid poker face most of the time. But you can tell by just by virtue of his body language and certainly how he conducted himself on his first day that it means a lot to him, that it took a lot for him to get back to where he is at this moment in time in the White House. And as Spar is saying in the live chat, daddy's home. I think that's true. I saw videos of President Trump. Melanie and I watched videos of him, at the Commander-in-Chief's ball where he's cutting this cake with a sword, and he's got a sword in his hand and he's doing the Trump dance with the sword. I mean, he's funny. He gets asked in the Oval Office as he's signing all these executive orders. And we're going to talk about all those executive orders here in just a second. Actually, I'm going to cover each and every one of them because they're all just substantial. And if you feel like you're getting bored as I go through those executive orders, it's not my intention to bore you. But if you get bored, let me know and we'll change directions pretty quickly on the show. But he's like answering. First of all, President Trump is in the Oval Office on his first day back in office. He's in the Oval. Completely redesigned the Oval Office. He's got every media outlet in the world there in front of the Resolute desk. He's got a stack of binders on the desk this high, 34 executive orders. He also rescinded 78 of Biden's executive orders on day one. And here he is signing these executive orders, telling the press what it is, and answering questions to the media all at the same time. And I thought, damn, I almost forgot what it was like to have a president that could do things and could function like a live human being, could multitask, signing executive orders, asking free-form questions with the press, complete and total transparency. And the funny thing about it is the media is always, Trump is a fascist, he's an authoritarian, he's a dictator. But the level of transparency that this guy governs with as president, we've never seen anything like it before, and we will probably never see anything like President Trump again. So many cool moments yesterday from when he's signing all these executive orders. But one, Peter Doocy asks him this question, like, hey, did Joe Biden leave you a letter? Because the tradition among presidents, one president to the next, as a new president wins election, the last one leaves him a little note in an envelope in the Resolute desk with the number that signifies the president. Like in Trump's case, he's 47. So on the letter, it just says 47. And Peter Doocy said, did Joe Biden leave you a letter? Leave you a little something in the Resolute desk? Well, President Trump was so busy when he got into the Oval Office, all these executive orders stacked high on his desk, he didn't even bother to check. And he opens this up the Resolute desk, which, by the way, if you haven't read up on the history of the Resolute desk, you should. It's just amazing, like the history behind that desk. But Trump opens the drawer on his desk, and there it is. He pulls out this letter in Joe Biden's handwriting that says 47 on it. And he shows it to every media outlet in the country. And Trump just free forming, right? It's just unbelievable to me. I love this presidential history type stuff. I love the office of the president. I love our country. I despise what the Democrats have done to government, to government offices. Democrats and these new Democrat policies, they're essentially communists. I revile them. But President Trump, we've never had this level of transparency in a president before, ever. So he's holding up this letter, and on this letter it says 47, and I'm like, holy shit. Normally a president gets in the Oval Office, walks in there for the first time. I've never been president before, but I can imagine what it's probably like. You're like, holy smokes, you worked your ass off to get to this point, but Trump worked 100 times harder than any other American president to get to that point. First thing you do is take it all in, open that drawer, and find that letter, right? President Trump didn't even bother to do that because he was so focused on us. In all seriousness, President Trump, think about this, after everything that he has been through for the last year, and also those of us who have supported him, he was not focused on reading a letter that was left for him in a tradition meant for presidents or spending even a second soaking in the Oval Office. No. President Trump immediately started fulfilling campaign promises. Immediately. And in the process, all the media is there, and he's seeing the letter in real time that he forgot to check. And he says something to Peter Doocy. But Peter, I'm glad you told me about that, because I probably wouldn't have found it for 6 months if you didn't tell me about it. But it gives you a sense of the kind of guy President Trump is. It gives you a sense of the things that he's thinking about, and that's making good on the promises he made to the American people. This is why I absolutely love this guy. So we're going to talk about those executive orders here in just a second. In the meantime, please smash that like button, that little green thumb. Well, little gray thumb beneath the video. When you smash it, it turns green. That helps us get on the leaderboard. So go ahead and smash that like button. Also, some administrative items here at the top. Obviously, I thanked Regina yesterday for that huge Rumble rant tip, but I forgot some people. Tatone, thank you for the Rumble rant tip yesterday. G Fontes always throwing Rumble rant tips in the live chat. We're very grateful for you all. And Steel City Ken, the original gangster, one of the original gangsters of the Battle Crew. Thank you. Gifting 5 subscriptions to Battleground Live. I'm still trying to figure out how this works, but I'm looking at the live chat right now, specifically at Rob Chifo, no chick sticks in the women's locker rooms or sports. We have the best widely recognized Battleground Live and the Battle Crew. You are widely recognized as the best live chat on Rumble, the most welcoming live chat on Rumble. We really are building just an extraordinary community here. But the gifted subscriptions, I'm seeing lots of highlighted red. I'm seeing lots of new subscribers to the Rumble page, and that's pretty cool, because your subscriptions to my locals, and I've been saying we're going to promising everybody that we're going to build out the locals for a long time now, and we're still trying to figure it out. Locals is, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. I kind of abandoned Facebook because they censored me for so long, but Locals is kind of like that, but because it hasn't been around a long time, it's not as user friendly as Facebook. So we're still trying to figure all that out. But I'm seeing lots of highlighted red in the live chat, which means there's more subscribers. So thank you, Ken, for gifting the 5 subscribers to Battleground Live. That is pretty damn cool. I like seeing the subscribers in the live chat. Look at you get a little emblem and everything else. That's pretty damn awesome. Okay, let's actually let me tell you very quickly about home title lock, and then we'll get into these executive orders. The FBI calls it house stealing, and you've probably heard about this devastating crime on the news because it really is a big problem. Scammers can transfer your home title, they can take out loans in your name and leave you with nothing but a financial and emotional disaster. If you own a home or any real estate, it's crucial you protect your property and equity from these criminals. And there's no better way than I know of than HometitleLock.com. All you have to do is go to HometitleLock.com/VNN. If you have not checked it out before, now is the time. I've arranged for my listeners and my viewers to get a free title scan to check to see if your home is still in your name. Plus, you'll get 30 days of free Home Title Lock's triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts if anything has changed, and most importantly, restoration of your title if there's ever any fraud whatsoever. You'll immediately be protected. You get 30 days of free when you use the promo code VNN at sign up. Protect your home, protect your equity, and your peace of mind right now with HometitleLock.com/VNN, promo code VNN. That's HometitleLock.com/VNN. If you're wondering why you hear me sniffling, is because the studio is in the basement, and it is probably like, it's 11 degrees outside. We woke up, it was -8 here in Western Pennsylvania. And while my basement, first of all, one of our heaters kind of went down and we're running on auxiliary heat here. I know, not real great timing in Fort Parnell, but that's just sometimes how life goes. But we have this awesome pellet stove in the basement that I get fired up every day. But the studio is kind of off in a corner of the basement, and it is cold in here. So I don't want to have like a little space heater in here because it will run and you'll hear it on the microphone and the camera. But if you hear me sniffling, that's because it's cold. It's a little bit cold. Okay, so let's talk about these executive orders. I mean, seriously, Trump wasted no time fulfilling his promises to the American people. And it just tells you so much about the kind of character, kind of person that this guy is. But the first executive order that he signed declared a national emergency at the southern border. And what this does by declaring a national emergency there is it empowers the SecDef to employ military forces quickly and redirect federal resources to address what is the border crisis. Of course, shortly after that, he ended catch and release. Then he reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. So the Remain in Mexico policy, for those who aren't familiar with it, it requires asylum seekers to remain in Mexico while their claims are being processed, which essentially reduces the strain on U.S. immigration facilities. That's the intent of the policy. It also, it's intended to be a deterrent and prevent abuse of the asylum process. So as you know, if you've been watching or listening to the show for as long as many of you have, the asylum process here in America has been abused under the Biden administration in pretty terrible ways. Like, obviously, if you're a target of some brutal dictator who's going to kill you and your family, we have an asylum process for that, for you to flee to America and come here and seek asylum. But what's happening with the asylum, we have a lot of economic asylum seekers, basically meaning like, hey, the jobs, I don't like that our jobs, I don't make enough money in my country. Our jobs don't pay as good in Venezuela as they do in America. So I'm going to seek economic asylum. I'm sorry, I don't believe in economic asylum. I don't like that. I'm glad that Trump reinstated Remain in Mexico. Number 4, he resumed the border wall construction. It needed to happen immediately. Number 5, and this is significant. This is very significant, and I've talked about this with Brian Dean Wright, which, by the way, he will be back right here on Battleground Live on Friday, which I know many of the women in the live chat are very excited about. Brian Dean Wright back for Right Night on Friday, and we have actually got Savage Rich in 2 appearances this week for Savage Wednesday on Wednesday. So Trump also designated on his first day in office the cartels, the drug cartels, as global terrorist organizations. This is something that Brian Dean Wright have spoke about as something that needed to happen. And while I don't advocate for war, in fact, I think, the primary responsibility of the world's lone benevolent superpower in the United States is to do everything we can to pursue peace. And as Trump said, which really resonated with me deeply when he said it yesterday during his inauguration speech, we measure success by the Americans who we keep out of war and by the conflicts and wars that we avoid. I love that. I love that a lot. But we would not tolerate a sophisticated terrorist network on our border that was killing tens of thousands of Americans every single year. And the truth is, these cartels, I mean, they're bringing in millions of illegal aliens into this country. They are doing horrible, horrible things to the women. Human trafficking on the southern border is just unbelievably bad. It's a hellscape down there on so many levels. 500,000 missing kids. This is all made possible by the cartels. Their partnership with China and shipping fentanyl across our border. It's the number one killer of Americans between 18 and 45 in this country. It's killing over 100,000 Americans a year. All of this is a form of terrorism waged against Americans, a multifaceted form of terrorism, and it needs to stop. Now, Brian Dean Wright would tell you, and we're going to probably talk about this a little bit more with him on Friday, but Brian Dean Wright would tell you, drop targeting packages on these people and shock and all, wipe them all out at once. Otherwise, it's likely that they'll hit back here, whether it's at the southern border or here in America, because many of these cartel members are in fact here in this country. But find them, take them out all at once. Don't stop until you do. Maybe you get Mexico's approval. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But Trump is clearly means business, especially as it pertains to going after the drug cartels. But number 6, Trump suspended refugee resettlement programs for 4 months. It's very, very important. We have to know who's coming into this country, period, end of story. Number 7, changes birthright citizenship. That's going to get challenged. I mean, the left was freaking out about that. Number 8, he is deploying American troops to the southern border to protect our sovereignty. The directive tasks the U.S. Northern Command, or NORTHCOM, with repelling mass migration, drug trafficking, and human smuggling. This is a big deal, folks. We're talking about active duty U.S. troops to protect our sovereignty. This absolutely had to happen. No question in my mind. Our troops protect the borders of other countries and, fight, bleed, and die for other countries and protecting their borders. We also should be protecting our own as a first and foremost responsibility. I mean, Trump ordered enhanced border vetting. Trump ends government censorship, federal hiring and regulation freeze, specifically targeted the IRS for a hiring freeze. And he ordered federal workers to return to their office. And by the way, these federal workers, I don't begrudge anybody for having a government job, but for the love of God, if you are getting paid by the U.S. taxpayer, show up at work. The rest of us have to do that in the year of 2025. Show up at work, do your freaking job. There was an analysis done of some of the U.S. government buildings in and around Washington, D.C. They're less than half full. That's a huge problem. Shouldn't be able to draw a paycheck from the U.S. taxpayer and not show up to freaking work. I can't believe that I even have to say this, and I can't believe that Trump even has to sign an executive order bringing those people back to work, but here we are. Number 12, Trump targets the weaponization of government. Awesome. Number 13, 78 Biden orders rescinded. That's freaking amazing. This is another one that I loved. Security clearances revoked. Trump revoked the security clearances for former officials who signed a letter claiming Hunter Biden's laptop was false. He also revoked the security clearance of John Bolton. Now, John Bolton wrote a book after serving in the Trump administration, wrote a bunch of sensitive information in that book. He used that sensitive information, the classified information, to attack President Trump. His book was never properly vetted. So Trump gets back into office, and what's he do? He promptly revokes John Bolton and the 51 spies who lied security clearances. Trump, and number 15, death penalty restored. Number 16, reforming policy, making federal positions. Trump reclassified federal roles with policymaking authority to enhance accountability. The policy reinstates a system to dismiss underperforming or insubordinate employees more easily. In other words, if you're a member of the deep state and you are stifling President Trump's agenda, life just got a little bit more difficult for you. Number 17, Trump addresses the cost of living. The directive focuses on reducing financial burdens on American families through targeted actions and reforms. Number 18, America First foreign policy implemented. I absolutely love this. Trump signed an executive order to implement an America First foreign policy at the U.S. State Department. The order mandates all operations, policies, and programs that prioritize U.S. interests above globalist agenda. Awesome. U.S. foreign aid suspended for 90 days. Trump paused all U.S. foreign assistance program for 90 days via an executive order. The suspension allows for a review to ensure all aid aligns with his administration's policy goals. All this is from Mario Nawfal, who put this stuff together, all these executive order, put them all together in a big mega thread. So thanks to Mario, hat tip to him. But number 20, Trump rejects global tax deal. Trump issued an order rejecting the commitments to the OECD global tax deal made under the previous administration. Trump declares a national energy emergency. Again, if you've been watching this show for a last year, then you heard Daniel Turner say in no uncertain terms, the first thing that President Trump should do is declare a national energy emergency. The order immediately reduces regulatory hurdles for oil and gas production to revive American manufacturing and fuel economic growth. So again, if you were watching this show for a year, you knew that President Trump was probably going to do that, and he just did on his very first day. Number 22, withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. Number 23, Trump opens Alaska's oil reserves. Number 24, Trump halts offshore wind expansion. Number 25, Trump establishes Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Number 26, Trump delays the TikTok ban. Number 27, flags at full staff on Inauguration Day. 28, Trump appoints officials in signing ceremony. So his cabinet nominees and interim cabinet secretaries who hold those positions before Trump's cabinet nominees get officially sworn in. And number 26, and I want you to bookmark this because we're going to come back to this because the media is just freaking out about it. Full pardons for January 6ers. Trump signed blanket pardons, 1,500 pardons for January 6 rioters, calling them hostages of political persecution. He also announced sentence commutations for 6, and he also has some others that are pending review right now. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Number 30, Trump limits the definitions of gender identity, which is amazing. Gender is defined. Let me see if I have it here. Order restricts gender identification options to those assigned at birth. I mean, so yeah, just basically sanity restored in America. Number 31, Trump ends federal diversity, equity, and inclusion program. 32, Trump makes merit the basis for federal hiring. Finally, Trump 33, Trump withdraws from the World Health Organization. It is a CCP-controlled organization. The World Health Organization was responsible for the lion's share of misinformation during the COVID era, and it was high time for the United States of America to get the hell out of that organization. Number 34, Trump reinstates service members expelled over vaccine mandates. Folks, I think one can make the argument that this was by far the most successful day, the most productive day for any American president, period, on the first day in office, period, full stop. And meanwhile, the guy has the energy to go out to these balls and party and everything else at night. The guy is unbelievable. But rest assured that the media wasted no time in going after the J6 pardons and trying to build a narrative around that. The video that I'm about to show you It's from a guy who turned his own father into the FBI after January 6, 2021. So the media, just to be clear, is trying to prop up a kid for turning in his own father to the FBI for simply being part of a mostly peaceful protest on January 6th. They're trying to prop that guy up as a hero. I'm sorry, it isn't going to work. Listen.
Up front now is Jackson Reffitt. He turned his father, Guy Reffitt, into the FBI for participating in the insurrection. And Guy Reffitt is currently in prison, serving a 6.5-year sentence for rioting at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. So obviously convicted and serving his sentence. Jackson, I appreciate your time. So here we are, and Trump is announcing pardons for January 6th defendants. That this could include your father, who's serving a 6-year sentence, a 6.5-year sentence as we speak. What's your reaction?
Well, I'm honestly flabbergasted that we've gotten to this point. I mean, I'm terrified. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've taken as many precautions as I could recently. I've picked up a gun. I've moved, and I've gotten myself away from what I thought would be a dangerous situation and staying where I thought my dad could find me. Or other people, people that are going to feel so validated by these actions, by this pardon, I'm just so filled with paranoia about what could happen. I've been waiting all day from a call from the DOJ to just figure it out and know what to do next. Because right now I don't, other than just to, sit around and, talk about it.
I mean, you're scared. I mean, you're right. I mean, you're scared about what could happen from your father specifically, or someone else.
Yeah. I don't know what other people are thinking. I don't even know what my father's thinking. I mean, I've talked to my father before, but I had thought it gotten better, and it really hadn't. My dad is still involved with these militias. He still talks with, a martyr status. He has no change. He's more galvanized than ever that I've seen. My mom too. My sisters are waiting outside the jail cell right now, and I feel for them, and I know who they are, and I love them, but I can't feel safe. And I'm sure hundreds of other families, thousands of other people that have been affected by these people and their actions, and what could happen when they're released. I mean, who knows? I mean, my dad once called me a traitor, and he said traitors get shot. So that's all I can think about recently, and just yeah.
I'm sorry, Jackson. You mentioned your sisters, and I know you're one of three, and your sisters are there, and you mentioned your mom too, and your mom and your sisters are fully on board with your father. And you talk about it really sounds like January 6th broke your family apart. Is there any way that Yeah. Go ahead.
Destroy it. Seriously, I mean, my father's actions coming from the Trump presidency and what he thought what he was doing was right, just destroyed it. And I made a very, very disgusting decision to inform authorities about what he was doing. And I still.
Yes, it was a disgusting decision. January 6th did not tear your family apart. You turning in your father for going to a protest about an election that was stolen is the reason why your family is in the situation that it's in. I'm sorry, but if that's tough to hear, but that's 100% the truth. The reason why people were down there on January 6th is because they had been insulted by the media and by Democrats and elites in power for decades. They were called bitter clingers by Barack Obama. They were called deplorables by Hillary Clinton. Media elites, uniparty hacks look down their nose at the American people. By the way, the people who elected Donald Trump in an electoral college landslide and a popular vote victory, these are the people that have been marginalized forever. Joe Biden just called these people garbage. They were locked down during COVID. They were forced to watch their loved ones die alone. Then they had an election that was stolen from them. And then when they rose up and said, hey, the math doesn't make sense, they were called conspiracy theorists, and then they were called domestic terrorists. And so they go down and they protest at the Capitol for what they saw, and then they get arrested. I mean, it was a mostly peaceful protest, the definition of a mostly peaceful protest. And by the way, I said this yesterday, the media is trying to make this big thing about this, about January 6th. Oh, I can't believe Trump did this, while wholly ignoring the Biden crime family receiving blanket pardons, preemptive pardons going well back to 2014, while wholly ignoring a pardon for Fauci, a pardon for Milley, a party for the January 6th committee. These are people who have done real damage, real and lasting damage to this country. So my point is this, folks who are listening, watching, the media, you don't hate them enough. You don't despise them enough. And by the way, they've got a whole host of new hoaxes that they've rolled out on day one of the Trump presidency that we're going to get into here in a second. But this narrative about January 6th, these are normal people who had their lives destroyed by the government. The media is outraged that there were 1,500 people given blanket pardons for a mostly peaceful protest by President Trump. That's what the media is outraged about. They're not outraged about the government locking up 1,500 people for simply walking through a Capitol that day, for simply protesting an election that was clearly stolen. And you heard Aaron Burnett lead into that segment saying, oh, the insurrection. That moron is still using the word insurrection. And that's how you know she's a disingenuous hack. There was no insurrection. Nobody even had any weapons. Was Buffalo Man going to be president? Who was going to be president? These people were there. They were there to protest. There were federal government agitators in that crowd. The Capitol Hill police let them into the building. I don't want to rehash any of this January 6th stuff. We all know the truth on that. But what the media, if they were honest brokers and they saw the true danger of a growing and overreaching federal government, they saw that true danger with clear eyes, they would be very concerned about them locking up 1,500 Americans, some of whom were charged and locked up just a couple of days before Trump won his election. That is a far greater threat. And when you combine it with the corrupt Biden crime family and all the pardons that he issued leaving office, and not just the January 6th committee, not just Milley, not just Fauci, not just the Biden crime family. Yeah, those were bad enough. But Biden issued over 8,000 pardons leaving office. Some of the worst people on the face of the planet. Some were cop killers. Some murdered children. The media hasn't said a damn thing about any of it. And to me, that's sickening. I mean, listen to Fanon yesterday on CNN.
Thanks, America. This feels like a betrayal to you.
Oh, I have been betrayed by my country. Rest assured, I have been betrayed by my country, and I've been betrayed by those that supported Donald Trump. Whether you voted for him because he promised these pardons or for some other reason, you knew that this was coming, and here we are.
Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm seeing folks like, looks like people were saying Trump's press conference is going on. Well, thank you for sticking with the show. I appreciate that very much. You guys are the best. But the resistance, I mean, the January 6th stuff is just part of this. You know, and before we jump into the next topic, which is like these inside the Beltway losers are really digging in to try to stifle or lecture or stop the president's agenda. I don't think that any of this is going to work. I just don't. And I got some flags from Aunt Cindy here. Hang on. I don't want to forget any people that are tipping in the live chat like I did yesterday, because I love you guys and I don't want to ever not thank you. Darius, which, by the way, I met Darius at Wendy Bell and Brock's Christmas party. Darius is an awesome guy. He said, Sean's Space Heater Fund. Rumble up for my brother Sean. Hammerhead said emergency energy funds. Oh yeah, you guys are just thank you, Hammer. Darius again. Thank you. And I see Deshaun's pellet stove funds. Commander Melanie's lipstick fund. Oh, what the heck? So she uses lipstick, but not as much as Wendy. That was from Ultra Maga Hardcore. You all are the best audience in the world. Thank you all so much for those Rumble. Okay. So President Trump went to the Washington National Cathedral. Make sure you smash that like button. Turn that button green. Smash it and turn it green. But President Trump did his a mass in the Washington National Cathedral today, and it was kind of unbelievable. And what I'm about to show you, seriously, what you're going to hear is this woke Episcopal bishop, like this LGBTQ bishop at the Washington National Cathedral, speaking to President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance and their entire families as they sit in the crowd. So what you're going to see is a split screen as this woke LGBTQ LMNOP bishop gives her sermon, and on the bottom part of the screen you're going to see President Trump and JD Vance, the real-time reaction. Just listen to this insanity.
Make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you, and as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country.
Watch JD Vance.
Who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
Come on.
And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
I can't deal with it anymore. So this woman is okay with child mutilation and gender, the fake gender affirming care. It's not gender affirming. It's basically trans indoctrination of our youth and surgical mutilation of our children. I mean, none of this is Christian teaching. None of it. And to sit there, by the way, these illegal aliens who come into this country, yeah, I got news for you. They're criminals. Their first act in coming into this country was to break the law. That makes them criminals. I'm sorry. This bullshit is not going to work on the American people. The vast majority of Americans support deportation, and they elected President Trump for it. In the last year, just the got-away number is 10.5 million. The number is likely 20, 30 million. And the more illegal aliens that come into this country, the smaller percentage of Americans who actually work. So it actually undercuts our economy in some pretty sinister ways. And no, these people, by and large, are not paying taxes. And actually, they're not good neighbors because they get so much federal assistance that they can afford housing in small communities. And when they use this federal assistance to buy houses, it drives the cost of houses up in and around them through the roof. It makes it harder for Americans to actually purchase homes. All of this is true. And by the way, the last thing that I'll say about this woke, disgusting pastor, this bishop, is the soft bigotry of low expectations. Oh, these people clean our toilets and they work on the farms and, you know, they clean our homes and work like shut up. America is so done with this bullshit. And you saw the look on Vice President J.D. Vance's face. He looks at his wife twice, like, oh my God. Like, seriously, it's absolutely sickening. That virtue signaling bullshit. And by the way, this woman is a rabid anti-Trump, liberal, insane person with a terminal case of Trump derangement syndrome. Don't believe me? Listen to her after the Antifa riots in Washington that almost burned down St. John's Church, which, by the way, is an Episcopal church. She is an Episcopal bishop. She clearly doesn't give a shit about these heathens burning down a church for what? Because they don't like Trump? Listen to her in the wake of the Summer of Love.
Why this is so painful for you?
Well, first of all, this is an excruciating moment, a crisis moment in our country where we need healing, where we need reconciliation, and we need justice. And the president, after speaking the remarks that you summarized and clearing with tear gas and riot-geared police the park and the courtyard of our church, stood in front of St. John's and held up a Bible as if it were spiritual validation and justification for a message that is antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and to the God of justice. And so I felt in no uncertain terms that I had to disassociate us from that symbolic gesture and to speak a word of justice and peace to the nation.
Did you have any notice that the
Shut up. Shut up. This shit drives me crazy. These people, they used tear gas. They weren't shooting them. The tear gas is non-lethal. They were breaking the law. They were committing arson. They were trying to burn down churches. They wounded and hurt over 40 uniformed Secret Service who were protecting the White House at that time. This kind of stuff is insane, and the days of this liberal insanity are over. This is why I say these Democrats, these new Democrats. My grandfather was a Democrat. He'd be rolling over in his grave at what the Democrat Party has become. They've completely abandoned their principles. They've completely abandoned the American working class. They completely abandoned the middle class. They've completely abandoned everything that the party once was 20 or 30 years ago. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The party of Bill Clinton, and if you go back and watch Bill Clinton's State of the Union address, that party would be very difficult for Republicans to beat today. But these Democrats, they've completely lost their mind because they've embraced this woke DEI insanity, which is indistinguishable from communism. And as it gets more and more divisive, as they divide people into smaller and smaller groups, those small groups start fighting one another. And what you get is a complete and wholesale collapse of the Democrat Party, which is in death throes right now, but it can't come fast enough. And if you think I'm fired up about this, it's because I am. We are not going into another 4 years of a Trump administration with these hack, lying losers in the media dominating the narrative. The American people don't trust them anymore. The American people don't want them anymore. And this corporate liberal media, they've just done so much damage to this country. We're not going to allow them to do it again. I mean, seriously, the day wasn't even over when some lying leftist Washington Post reporter put out about this illegal alien who was coming here to the country using the CBP-1 app, which, by the way, was an app that was specially designed by the Biden administration to facilitate a mass flow of illegal immigrants into this country. They set up all this stuff on an app. They coordinate a time to come here. They use a fake asylum claim to have an asylum hearing. It wasn't 12 hours into the day. Trump wasn't president for 12 hours, and they're already rolling out this propaganda. Look. Migrants in Ciudad Juarez were waiting for their 1 p.m. CBP-1 parole appointments and learned 20 minutes ago that the app is shut down and those appointments are no longer valid. So what do you see? A crying mom with 3 kids. Oh, she can't get into America. Oh, your heart breaks for these people. I mean, that is the intent behind what you're seeing. It's a propaganda campaign, and you're going to see more of this. But the interesting thing about this is that Customs and Border Patrol offices are closed on federal holidays like Martin Luther King Day, January 20th, 2025. Regular immigration appointments are not scheduled on these days. These illegal aliens were not waiting for 1 p.m. appointments. This was all just ridiculous propaganda intended to push a narrative and not the truth on behalf of the on the American people. And it just makes me so unbelievably angry, folks. I'm so over the insanity. I just am. All right, let me take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about Milley, and then we're going to talk about this Coast Guard Commandant, Lisa Fagan, who was just terminated for prioritizing DEI. I'm going to talk about all that. And then I got to talk about this new hoax that they're rolling out on Pete Hegseth and why you shouldn't buy it at all. Tell you just here in a second. Smash that like button, that little gray thumb beneath the video. When you smash it, it turns green. Go ahead and smash it. We always try to get to 400 likes during the show. I also try not to mention it too much because we just got a lot to get to. But let me tell you about My Patriot Supply. We've all seen the headlines: cyber attacks on our power grids, drones in the sky, violent attacks on everyday Americans. The ugly truth is no leader, no system can protect you from everything. And the last thing I want is to be standing in line depending on help that may never come. And when the crisis hits, food is always the first casualty. Everyone needs it, and panic buying makes things worse. That's why I've made sure my family is prepared with My Patriot Supply. Their 4-week emergency food kit gives you the nutrition you need to stay strong in a crisis. With over 2,000 calories a day and 100% of your daily value of 12 essential vitamins and minerals, this kit keeps you going when every meal matters. Right now, they're offering $50 off their 4-week emergency food kit. So just go to preparewithvnn.com right now to grab yours. Don't put this off. Now is the time to prepare. That is preparewithvnn.com. Go there to get your 4-week emergency food kit today. Okay, so this Milley thing. So this is important. Let me see if I can get this picture up here, walk through this with you. But Trump's in office and they're not wasting any time to make changes. We've already established that, right? This is really important. So Milley was issued a blanket pardon. So this is Natasha Bertrand. Natasha Bertrand is, an OG Russia collusion hoaxer, wrote all these articles accusing the president of Russia collusion and stuff. So just take that for what you will there. But this is General Milley's official portrait. It was unveiled today being on January 10th at the Pentagon. The details requested in these are always interesting. Note the Ukraine folder on the left top of the map. Yeah, this is a map of Ukraine. It says Ukraine here, and beneath it is a map of Russia. Well, this is Milley. Just accepted a preemptive blanket pardon for the horrible things he did under the Biden administration, and even before that, to undermine President Trump while he was still commander-in-chief. This guy, to me, he's a traitor. He betrayed his country. He stepped outside of his role as a uniformed military officer and tried to usurp a commander-in-chief in President Trump. He absolutely, positively did. And as we learn more about January 6th, you will see more people pointing the finger at him than believe me, as more evidence comes out, more people are going to blame Milley for what happened on January 6th. But look, this is Milley's portrait is no longer up in Pentagon hallway just 10 days after it was unveiled. So this is where his picture was hanging. Obviously, that's empty. I think that's a very good thing, indicative of massive changes coming to the Pentagon. And I'm telling you folks, that is why they are so afraid of Pete Hegseth, because these uniform flag officers that have done nothing but weave diversity, equity, and inclusion into our military to our great detriment as a country and as a force that is meant to be lethal, they did this and they need to pay a price for it. They need to be held accountable for the terrible things that they've done to our military. Pete said it during his hearing, and I completely agree. A private that loses a rifle on the battlefield gets put out of the military or has his wages garnered for the next 20 years to pay for it if they don't put him in jail. A general who loses a war gets promoted. Those days are over. And you'll see the Coast Guard, one of the Coast Guard commandant, actually the Coast Guard commandant, was just relieved yesterday for not doing anything to stop the border crisis and investing tens of millions of dollars into diversity, equity, and inclusion when she should have been spending that on training and readiness. It's absolutely ridiculous that we're here, but it's good that President Trump is rectifying this.
We currently have nearly 40% women enrolled at the Coast Guard Academy. I'm really excited about the talent and the diversity that I see coming through the academy. My daughter is in the Coast Guard as a lieutenant, and there is just nothing but opportunity for her and all of the men and women that have joined the service. I'm really excited about the future as we look ahead.
There she is talking about, oh, we got a diverse class, diverse. Anytime you hear a flag officer say that, you should immediately discard their opinion because they are morons. They are not focused on what makes us lethal. It's unity, not diversity. So the DC establishment, the permanent war machine class, the defense industrial complex, all of these lobbyists that get paychecks from the defense industrial complex, they are petrified of a SecDef in Pete Hegseth. They are pulling out all the stops to try to derail Pete's confirmation. Now, as a quick summary, Pete was voted out of the Armed Services Committee yesterday in a first step towards his confirmation in a 14-13 party line vote. Now, Pete Hegseth's nomination goes to the General Assembly, where he needs a simple majority to be confirmed in the U.S. Senate. Procedurally, what typically happens is they'll go to the floor, they'll debate it for a couple of days. Pete could have a vote as early as Thursday, more likely Friday, as I said yesterday, and then it would all come down to whether or not Senate Majority Leader Thune is willing to keep the Senate over the weekend. I think he will, but Pete could get his first vote as early as Thursday. And this is precisely why you're seeing this new smear campaign, this Hail Mary, this 11th hour attempt to derail his confirmation. I'm going to give you all the details on this. So this from NBC. New senators received an affidavit Tuesday from the former sister-in-law of Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth, in which she says his behavior caused his second wife to fear for her safety. So that's the headline. Seriously, listen. Senators received an affidavit Thursday from former sister-in-law of Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth, in which she says his behavior caused his second wife to fear for his safety. Now, what they don't tell you in that headline is this is the ex-wife of one of Pete's brothers, who is also a rabid liberal and anti-Trump person. So there's that. First of all. Second of all, they don't tell you in any of these headlines that Samantha Hegseth, Pete's second wife, said, first and foremost, I have not and will not comment on my marriage to Pete Hegseth. I do not have representatives speaking on my behalf, nor have I ever asked someone to share or speak about the details of my marriage on my behalf, whether it be a reporter, committee member, transition team member, etc. She added, I do not believe your information to be accurate. I have CC'd my lawyer. Asked what information was not accurate for comment on the affidavit, she replied on Tuesday, there was no physical abuse in my marriage. You have these people. They ran that headline they still ran the story despite his wife saying this is all complete bullshit. Now, the Senate Armed Services Committee, here's the thing. They knew about these bogus allegations prior to the hearing. Not a single Democrat asked in public about these accusations. Now, why? The reason why they didn't ask about these allegations is because they were so flimsy and directly refuted by his ex-wife. They held no water. The Democrats could stoop to some pretty low positions. But even they weren't willing to ask about this. This is nothing more than a narrative-shaping smear job prior to his vote before the General Assembly. It is sickening, the depths at which these people will stoop to. Listen. I want you to listen carefully to this segment, because NBC, MSNBC, they're all running this bullshit, trying to shift public sentiment on Pete prior to his confirmation vote. But just listen, what's curiously absent from this segment?
Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth. NBC's Julie Sirkin helped break this story. She joins us now. What more can you tell us?
Well, Chris, this is significant because for the first time, we are hearing on the record of somebody who spoke directly with Samantha Hegseth. So on the record, did you hear that? I want to break this down for you. During Pete's hearing, it was all of these are anonymous. These are anonymous smears. These are anonymous smears. Well, they are. So she said this is the first person who would speak on the record who spoke to Samantha Hegseth. By the way, that's called hearsay, and it wouldn't hold up in a court of law anywhere. Okay? She might have gone on the record, but this isn't a first-person source. But the reason why they're using on the record is to push back and use a straw man against the anonymous allegations. Oh, they're not anonymous anymore. See, they're on the record. During the time in which she was married to Pete Hegseth, who shared concerns fearing for her safety. I'm talking about Danielle Hegseth. She's the former sister-in-law to both Samantha and Pete Hegseth. She says in this copy of this affidavit, a redacted version, quote, "I have chosen to come forward publicly at significant personal sacrifice because I am deeply concerned by what Hegseth's confirmation would mean for our military and our country." She adds that part of her reason, and this is so significant, Chris, for coming forward is because I have been assured that making this public statement will ensure that certain senators who are still on the fence will vote against Hegseth's confirmation. But for that insurance, I would not subject myself or others referred to in this statement to the public scrutiny this statement is likely to cause. This has been the culmination of days of work from committee staffers on the Armed Services Committee who have been first in touch with somebody with secondhand knowledge of these allegations. Then they were directly in touch with Danielle Hegseth. This was a work in progress to get her to come forward. Reid, who is the top Democrat on the panel that was considering Hegseth's nomination, he actually sent Danielle Hegseth a letter over the weekend that we have obtained asking her to detail any examples of abuse or threatening conduct from Pete Hegseth toward any of his ex-wives. And now we have this result, which is this affidavit, which is currently being viewed by some senators. This has just started to happen after we've obtained the redacted version of this affidavit. And I'll tell you, Chris, that yesterday Hegseth was reported out of the committee on a party line vote.
Okay, so there's that. Check that out. You notice what wasn't reported there. How about this one from NBC? Listen.
I actually do want to start with some breaking news we have. It involves the president's choice for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. What should we know here?
That's right, Zinkley. This is some exclusive reporting from my colleagues Julie Sirkin, Courtney Cuby, and Sarah Fitzpatrick, and they outline an affidavit from Pete Hegseth's ex-sister-in-law who signed an affidavit in which she said that her sister feared for her safety, or sister-in-law, I should say, feared for her safety when she was married to Pete Hegseth. This would be Pete Hegseth's second wife. Now, she signed this affidavit and provided it to committee staff. Senators are now reviewing it. Now, Pete Hegseth's ex-wife, Samantha, has stated on the record that she's not authorized anyone to speak on her behalf and that she denies the allegations that her former sister-in-law has outlined in this report. But this is another development, another allegation.
So at least he said denies the allegations, but they leave out again her saying there was no physical abuse in my marriage. I'm sorry, but these people are sickening. And the reason why this upsets me is that Pete's wife, Jen, they got all these kids. They don't deserve this. And Samantha, you'd think that they would lead with the ex-wife says that this is complete bullshit. You think that that would be the lead of the story, but it's not about the truth to these people. It's about the narrative. It's about the end state goal of derailing this guy's confirmation because he is a threat to the defense industrial complex, to the war machine in DC, and they don't want that guy confirmed as Secretary of Defense. And here's the thing, folks. As of right now, I don't believe that this is going to work. I just don't. I think the Republicans have learned a lot of lessons from Kavanaugh. I just do. And so I think that's the good news here. So anyways, folks, we're right at an hour. Smash that like button, that little gray thumb beneath the video. Smash it on your way out. Let's try to get at least close to 400 likes on our way out of here, folks. Man, this freaking flew by. I'm looking at the live chat. Everyone in there saying sue CNN, sue NBC. I know. And you are all rightfully saying that this is a wrap-up smear. It's exactly what they do. They plant a story in the media. The stupid media writes it, and then see Democrats say, well, yeah, it has to be true. See, it's in the media. Like, it's what they do. So, look, I feel good about Hegseth's nomination. I believe that the Republicans have the votes, and I think that he's going to be confirmed. So let's say a prayer that there are no procedural hiccups where the Democrats will unnecessarily delay things, which of course they'll try, but I think he's going to get confirmed, folks. Anyways, folks, tomorrow we've got Savage Rich Barris on deck again. Lots of things to talk about with Savage Rich on Savage Wednesday. And then, of course, we've got Brian Dean Wright locked in for Friday for Wright Night. So an awesome week of shows. Thank you all for being with us. And if you're in Western Pennsylvania or anywhere in the Northeast, really, stay warm. Oh, my gosh. I'm looking at it's 9 degrees outside right now in Western Pennsylvania. Very, very cold. That pellet stove is working very, very hard. So stay warm, okay? That's it for Battleground Live for tonight. I will see you. I see G.I. Jenny. Don't forget, sir, just over 3 weeks to Valentine's Day. Don't forget to get Commander Melanie a lovely present. You are right about that. And I think you're referring to Brian Dean Wright. Like I said, he's pretty popular with the ladies on the show, which is perfectly cool. He's also very smart. So as always, folks, God bless you all. God bless this amazing country that we call home. Take care. Good night. And I will see you tomorrow with Savage Rich Barris. Take care.